We call it people technology.
We start a couple of double headers now that could go a long way in deciding what the playoff fixtures and spots could look like. You've got the Mumbai Indians in action now in the afternoon fixture on the 2nd of October at Sharjah. You've got Punjab in action tomorrow, Bangalore in action tomorrow, Kolkata in action tomorrow. So it's a massive game, this match number 46 on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout. Time to say good afternoon to Sanjay Manjrekar and a good morning to Carlos Brathwaite, who's back with us. And let's hope for
Morning,
Carlos
Carlos.
it's the kind of game that keeps him awake because the Punjab Kings were guilty of putting him to sleep last time. But Mumbai and Delhi, a repeat of last year's final, Carlos, that should get you up and about in the morning in Barbados.
Yeah, looking forward to it. A lot to play for.
Mm.
Mumbai needs to build on what was a good win last time around, and Delhi will want to continue with that momentum that they've had secured of knockout place, and they
Yeah.
want to finish top two for that extra bite at the cherry. So it should be a good one, and I'm looking forward to staying awake.
Yeah, absolutely. As it turns out, while Delhi have been the superior team, you think, through a large part of this tournament. Last two games have been different results. Delhi going down to Kolkata, Mumbai picking up much needed points against the Punjab Kings. If we look at the points table, Sanjay, Mumbai Indians would have had an eye on yesterday's game, that crazy comedy of errors between Kolkata and Punjab, and they would have been quite happy with the result. They do find themselves at the start of this game in sixth place, but 2 points here, and up they go into a playoff spot. So they wouldn't mind yesterday's result.
Yes, they wouldn't mind it. And some good things happened for them in the last game, especially Hardik Pandya, getting some runs. More
Yeah.
importantly, not just the 40 not out, that he faced 30 balls is like gold dust, for somebody who's looked out of touch, rusty, to have that much time out there in the middle in an actual IPL game. And I think it started looking like the Hardik Pandya of old, that he had that kind of exposure and time on the pitch. It was brilliant for Mumbai Indians.
Yeah, they've got matters in their hands, you'd think. If they win all the remaining games, should make a compelling enough case. Now that Kolkata can't get to 16 points, neither can Punjab. So Mumbai Indians have it in their hands. But they've lost a toss. Now, Sanjay Sharjah, we've had all sorts of conversations about the surface and whether it is a massive advantage to win the toss in these afternoon games. Rishabh Pant has done that. He's going to have a bowl first, so that batting lineup that seems to have picked up some kind of form or time will have to bat first at Sharjah. Thoughts?
Yeah, a toss in this sport is such a huge
Hmm.
factor. And, I hope at some point of time we make some sense of this thing and come to understand how big an advantage somebody gets just from a spin of coin. I don't think you get that kind of an advantage in any other sport. So whether, you can maybe neutralize the toss advantage in some way, because that's a big toss to win at Sharjah, especially because now you've got the tough task on a pitch like we have had to go out there and decide, what's a good score to put up on the board, and especially when you have somebody like Delhi Capitals and Prithvi Shaw, I believe, is playing today, so the batting is now
Yeah.
bolstered. So it's a tough one. So toss, when you win, most teams would want to chase, and rightly so.
Yeah, it's tilted even further at this venue, Carlos. We've had 3 out of 4 wins for the teams chasing. The only defeat being Sunrisers, where they should have chased down a target against Punjab Kings. So you think this is that one place where the toss is almost unfairly giving one team an advantage?
Yeah, it definitely is. And as Sanjay said, it seems as though as you win the toss, you bowl first, you win regardless. But I look at it slightly differently. I want Mumbai Indians to take it as a challenge. Rohit Sharma and Quinton de Kock have been doing well at the top. The problem has been the middle order. So now you're setting a total. It gives you middle order between over number 8 and number 14 to sort themselves out. Um, Hardick's just had a few hits. Pollard really hasn't got going yet, hasn't had much of an opportunity yet. So hopefully his eventually into the IPL and they need it now more than ever. But they should be looking at a total around 150, 160. Anything else other than that is a bonus. But these are the sort of games that you need to turn them on the head when the chips are down. It's all against you. You need to find some inspiration somewhere in there with that toss coming down and having to bat first to turn the game on its head, get to 150, 160, and win this game. And if they do this against the odds, then they can't see the Mumbai Juggernaut not making it to top four and not going to final.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if we just look at team changes, interesting that they've left out Lalit Yadav of the Delhi Capitals as return for Prithvi Shaw comes in. Steve Smith was the option that they went for. They've had three overseas ever since Marcus Stoinis' injury, but it looks like they want to stick with Steve Smith and extend that batting order. Sanjay, it's interesting that Smith will probably bat three now. Shreyas Iyer at four, Pant and Hetmai all go a position down. What do you make of that selection call?
Yeah, more than that, this is a brave call because now they've got just five bowlers to bowl with.
Hmm.
And, the reason Stoinis was adding such a great balance, and that's why they tried Lalit Yadav, was that they could get 2 or 3 overs if needed. That is an option they don't have. But because it's a situation where Delhi Capitals are well placed, they're willing to go by this. Match at Sharjah and the way Steve Smith played in the last game, they would have been tempted to play him one more. Maybe at Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they would have said, let's leave Steve Smith out and get Prithvi Shaw back in. So it just bolsters their batting, and maybe that's a good thing to do as well, with
Yeah.
the form of Rishabh Pant that we've seen. So it's not a bad call, but slight danger with just five bowlers. What Mumbai Indians have done is interesting, Ronak. They've got Jayant Yadav in, and it seems like one by one they're dropping all India players who have been selected for that Indian World Cup. So Ishan Kishan's gone. Rahul Chahar, Surya Kumar Yadav could be next. So they're just
Mhm.
sticking off those players. I had Jayant Yadav in my playing 11 at the cost of,
Yeah.
say, giving Surya Kumar Yadav a bit of a break. And,
Okay.
use Jayant Yadav's batting. People underestimate his batting. He's a guy who's got a test 100. So, he's a pretty good batter. And if they felt that Surya is really out of form, then that could have been the way to go. Rahul Chahar left out, and Krunal, beg your pardon, Jayant Yadav in is a very interesting call.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be a specialist when it comes to certain fixtures. And Mumbai did use Jayant Yadav in the final last year. He has played against the Delhi Capitals in particular. That Capitals side had a lot of left-handers too. It had Shikhar Dhawan, Rishabh Pant, Shimron Hetmeyer was there as well. So you think that's one of the reasons why Jayant Yadav gets a go against the Delhi Capitals in particular. And he's had decent returns too. So is it a horses for causes sort of selection, Carlos, to bring in Jayant Yadav today?
Potentially, yeah. But I've played with Jayant Yadav, and he will play one game, miss the next, and every single game it just looks as though he's been on a run of games and in a game rhythm. So for someone like him, happy for him to get the chance. You can't see it being a long-term run. That's the only
Yeah.
unfortunate point of the situation. I actually love that number three spot for him, as Sanjay mentioned, because he's very underrated with the batter. He's not going to give you anything at number eight, trying to power the ball. But you get him at number three. Um, can't be any worse than Suryakumar Yadav has been, especially if he gets a couple of games. And then he adds something with the off breaks as well, and it takes the pressure off him having to bowl four. Probably can bowl two or three, and on a good day bowl four if you have Rahul Chahar. So it'd be interesting to
Mm.
see if they just give him a look in to eventually moving up to number three.
Yeah.
But horses for courses and someone that's always ready or seems to be. You could expect a good performance from Jayant Yadav today.
Yeah, he is one of those, isn't he, Sanjay, who it's not like he takes time to get his shape or get his discipline. Even if you put Jayant Yadav for the sixth game of the season and don't play him after, he will bowl four tidy overs. More often than not, that's what you've come to expect of him.
Yeah, they've got brilliant reserves in Saurav Tiwari. I mean, gets 1 or 2 games on an average per season. I mean, when he started off, he got a lot more games. But I think last season just played 1 or 2. The one before that, I think 7 games. And now, again, he's getting a few more. And Jayant, the other, when he saw those numbers, I think a lot of those games would have been crunch games as well. That they
Yes.
tend to do that Mumbai Indians. So I think Jayant Yadav, his IPL must have been all about looking at, okay, who am I playing tomorrow? Who are likely to play? Are they four left-handed? Okay, I'm getting a game tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, he probably earmarks the Delhi fixtures in the IPL and, make sure he's training harder on the eve of that and takes it easy perhaps on the other days. If I'll just bring
Yeah.
back that Delhi lineup, Sanjay's already pointed that out, Carlos, that five bowlers only. Now, that tends to be a risk on a lot of days, especially given nobody. Your next best bowler on the left hand side of that column is Steve Smith, who started off as a leg spinner, but those days are gone far behind us. Is it a better team now that they've won the toss? Could you have been more worried for this team if they had to defend a score with just those five bowlers? Now suddenly Rishabh Pant will be feeling a bit better of this brave call.
Yeah, it is a brave call, but you
Hmm.
gotta make brave calls to win the tournament. And that Steve Smith inclusion now puts a little pressure on Hetmeyer um, as well as any of the other guys on the
Yeah.
bench because you obviously brought in Lalit Yadav. He didn't give you anything with the bat, and he only offered 2 overs with the ball. So you're probably looking at Steve Smith as an option that can give you a lot more with the bat, potentially even win you the game. And maybe bowl one over. I saw him rolling his arm over in on Instagram in the practice. You wouldn't want to be banking on that one over. Um, but I guess they've gone the South African route, back our batters to get us the runs and back our bowlers to bowl 20 overs. But against a team in better batting form, it could be slightly dangerous, especially if they have to defend, as you said.
Yeah. Now, is this team one which is finding its batting form? You think a large part of that revolves around whether Surya Kumar Yadav finds some form. 0, 8, 5, and 3. That's as bad as you can get when you get form going into this game. And you've also will have a couple of threes actually. So it's been a shocker for season for Surya Kumar Yadav after the highest of highs. Sanjay, an impressive start to his international career, call up for the World Cup ahead of Shreyas Iyer, and then this has happened. Now, what does Surya Kumar Yadav need to do to try and find his mojo back there? Batting first today at Sharjah, tough anyway. What can he do?
I'm actually going to deflect this question to Carlos by just saying this that this is just incredible that a player
Yes.
that we kept raving about for 2 or 3 years, the kind of quality that he showed with his batting, not just about runs, the quality of shots that he played. And he went to Sri Lanka, played for India, so he had an exposure earlier as well. But in Sri Lanka, the form was there. He looked better than most. And then suddenly this happened. So I have no understanding about a T20 player losing form like this. Maybe Carlos can tell us. He must have seen some
Hmm.
examples of this kind from close quarters. What happens? I mean, because not only are the scores in single digit, in the last game he missed a ball, I think from
Yeah.
Bishnoi by this much. He
Yeah.
looked
That much.
completely
Yeah.
clueless.
Carlos?
I think, to be honest, I think a lot of it is mental clarity. You don't just lose form overnight. One of my coaches, Roddy Asper, always say you're not a good player just because you score 100 or a better player than you were the day before, and you're not a worse player the day after because you made a dot. But I think it's about mental clarity for Surya Kumar Yadav. And I know you've heard me say on the show a couple of times, being the hunter and being the hunted are two different scenarios.
Hmm.
When you have the drive to get that position, and everyone is doubting you and you're using that doubt to kind of fuel your machine, all of a sudden you've become the hunted because people are saying that Shreyas Iyer is supposed to be picked before you and wasn't. Is a different mindset. He put himself probably putting himself under a bit of pressure to do as well
Mm.
as he's done in the past couple of years, and then even surpass it to kind of justify his selection. Um, he's probably going out there in mind not as clear, looking at the result and not the process. It's small little things, and you'll find and you'll be able to attest to this, Sanjay. The most important thing as a batter is to watch the ball, but it's also the most underrated thing. Is the last thing that everyone speaks about when you're going through a rut. So it is for Pollard has been through it. Everyone has been through it. Rohit Sharma, I'm sure, have been through it. Mahela Jayawardene. There's more enough experience in that dressing room. Someone needs to, sometimes need a pat on the back, sometimes they need a loud shout. Just clear your mind. They can either go one or two ways. We're going to back you regardless of the performance. So go out there and have a free mind, play your cricket,
Hmm.
get us some scores, or this is your last chance, or we're gonna have to pull you out, give you a bit of a rest, maybe stop you from coming to the ground for a couple of games, go spend some time with your family, stay away from cricket for a couple of days, and then come back a bit feeling a bit more refreshed and hungry. So there's one or two ways that can be done, and both are um, possible with the franchise setup, but they need to have a serious look. And I keep saying it all the time: is not only IPL, it is IPL, but you're also looking towards India probable selection in the final World Cup squad and hopefully playing a big part. So he needs to get his mind right. He needs to just
Hmm.
get back to what has made him Surya Kumar Yadav for the last couple of years.
Hmm.
It's a fantastic
Um, Yeah,
reading of a player's mind, Carlos. Thank you very much for that. And I guess recovering from failures, I think, is the ultimate test for any performer. How do you respond to failure? Because, he's had a stint with KKR, Ronak, when he
mm.
was not the player that he's been for Mumbai Indians. Even then, I don't think he had a patch like this. So, yeah.
That point that Carlos makes, though, Sanjay, initially, that what you had driving you all these years, which was, oh, how is this guy not in the Indian team? How is he so good? He's so good. Now he is in the Indian team. Now he's made the World Cup, and suddenly does that passion almost, whether consciously or subconsciously, just die down, and therefore either the focus goes, the concentration goes. Do you see that potentially in the story of Surya Kumar Yadav? It's a unique one in Indian cricket over the years.
Yeah, see, I saw him making his debut against England, for his first T20 game, I think it was. And it was
Yeah,
like it took this form at the international level. And the
yeah.
quality of shots that he played, it was just mind-boggling, how he did that. Ishan Kishan also looked the same. And then Ishan Kishan lost a bit of steam in the home IPL, Indian IPL, and then came to Sri Lanka and didn't quite look like before, but still, one or two innings that you felt he still got it. And Surya Kumar had that quality right up there. So, international cricket, the transition was not a problem. And then comes back to this IPL. So I'm just wondering what kind of pressure he has now. But maybe, just he's looking at himself differently. And,
Yeah.
and I think, that the best line that Carlos said was about watching the ball. I've gone
Mm.
through, bad patches and stuff like that. There's so many things going on in your head. The storm of, all kinds of ideas that people have told you about and something that you feel you need to do. And in the end, you're not watching the ball as you would do earlier when there was no baggage of this kind. That's what I've seen, and I fielded at Silly Point and very close to some batters, some great batters at the test level. And I've heard one or two actually every time the ball was being delivered say quite audibly, "Watch the ball," that kind. So they're sort of reinforcing the thing
Mm.
of just now, okay, you've got everything there on your hard disk, but I'm not going to let it dominate my thought when
Mm.
the ball is being bowled because I'm now going back to keeping it simple. And what those thoughts are there, they are there in the background. But now I have to watch the ball.
Yeah, we just got to watch the ball of the hands of the release of five of the best bowlers in the tournament, right? At least four of the best bowlers in the tournament. You know that
Mm,
Nakia Rabada have been exceptional. Avesh Khan's been a revelation this season, and
true.
between Aksar and Ashwin, they always do a job. Does that also trigger the question of maybe Rohit Sharma? Does he bat differently today? It's a big game. Sharjah is a difficult venue. They've lost an important toss. You're not sure of Surya Kumar Yadav's form. And Rohit Sharma's form's been all right if you look at it in isolation of just Rohit Sharma. He gets quick fire runs, average of 33 plus, very good. 126, you think not bad for 5 games in Chennai and then a lot of games here in the UAE on tough surfaces or challenging surfaces for batting. But given all the larger context, and Sanjay has said he likes the way Rohit Sharma approaches games, Carlos, but given the larger context of things, would you like to see Rohit Sharma play the different game today, play a long
A
game
bit
today?
like Rahul, you mean?
A bit like KL Rahul, yeah, which he's come in this under fire for,
Um,
but
I would
I can see Rahul also. Yeah.
I wouldn't say a different game. But
Hmm.
him and DeCock have been getting good starts. But I don't think they've gotten a 80, 70, a 70 or 80, um, all the way up to 100, like a real big 50.
Hmm.
Speak under correction. Um, yeah, and you can see the scores there. So the highest score has been was 63. All the rest have been starts. He probably hasn't failed in any games, as far as the only the Punjab game. So he always had a start at a good clip. But I think he want to go bigger. Not necessarily different, but instead of getting
Hmm.
to 30 and 40 and getting out, go on and on and on. And interestingly enough, if you can get a Rohit Sharma batting from 40 to
Hmm.
80 with a Surya Kumar, that may actually because that really slows down. Roy is equally adept at pace, spin, power play, outside the power play. Obviously, numbers might drop a bit, but it's not a big disparity. So it might actually help Surya
Yeah.
Kumar Yadav to be batting with Rohit Sharma whilst he's flowing, taking some of the pressure off Surya Kumar Yadav. Obviously, the Indian teammates. Um, Not that Quinton de Kock isn't a good enough player to usher Surya Kumar Yadav, but
Yeah.
culturally, Rohit Sharma would know all the right things to say, all the right ways to approach it, the way to just usher him along his partner in his innings in the partnership. And you never know, that may be what Mumbai Indians need, that may be what Suryakumar Yadav needs. But Rohit Sharma and Quinton de Kock, one of them needs to go on and get a really big score. They've been doing the hard parts, and then not necessarily giving it away, but getting out. And Mumbai Indians will want to go a lot deeper today and get that big score.
Yeah, spin in particular, Sanjay, against Rohit Sharma, he doesn't hold back, right? We've been observing Virat Kohli beyond the power play, and we see clearly shift in gear, shift in approach. Rohit Sharma doesn't do that, but he hasn't batted long enough as a result in the last few games. Would you still encourage the powerful, the aggressive Rohit Sharma approach, or do you say no? It's time to bat a little differently after the power play.
No, I don't think that they should do that because that would be really extremely hazardous because it completely changes the culture of Mumbai Indians. And Mumbai Indians has been a champion team because when they're playing well, the top seven batters, none of their batters look like they're playing for a 50 or looking for a score for themselves to enhance their reputation in the IPL. They all go stay in the present. Look at Quinton de Kock, 25, 30,
Yeah.
and that kind of a start just puts the opposition on the back foot. And Rohit Sharma, in the same way, when he got that 40, I think he played a lofted shot and got out. I like to see that because that becomes invaluable and that actually drives you to success. Look at CSK, Ruturaj Gaikwad, Faf du Plessis, nobody, Moeen Ali getting 20s. It's a team game, T20. You can't be expecting just one or two guys or two guys believing that if they get runs, they can win matches. Punjab Kings is a great example where I think there is a misplaced belief in this thing that if the openers get a long partnership, if KL Rahul stays there, if the onus is on one or two batters, that is not a champion team that you're looking at. So Rohit Sharma should continue playing that way. And Mumbai Indians should just hope that Surya Kumar Yadav discovers his mojo. And there is, of course, Pollard to follow. Hardik Pandya is back. So, no, I wouldn't want Rohit Sharma to change.
Right, one thing's at the top, the others towards the end, and their finishes haven't been great either. Hardik Pandya, of course, has had his share of injuries, but Mumbai do not have that sort of power game towards the end that they've been, intimidating other sides with and known for over the past few years. Between overs 16 to 20 in 2021, they've been going at just over 8.5 and over. Balls per boundary seems to have reduced to under. If Kyron Pollard can play more of a role here, Carlos, Hardik Pandya spent a little time in the last game, but it still seems like Pollard is given the job, the tough job of coming when there's not much time left. Day like this today, tricky service. Would you mind, would you be tempted to say, Kyron Pollard, come up earlier, spend some time? We know what you can do if you face 30 to 35 balls.
Yeah, it would be attractive for sure, especially with Hardik having that similar chance last game and the results that he got. But I wonder if that run rate is because of how many wickets they're losing. Because obviously in previous years that middle order would have been pulling the weight, and then you see a
Mm.
situation where number five can be either Hardik, Kunal, or um, Pollard because you're only two or three down in the 13th, 14th over. So they actually get a few overs to go in with a set batter, bat five balls, seven balls, and then explode at the back end. Whereas now they're almost batting 11th over and the five down, 13th over and the four or five down. So the approach is different. So I think that last phase has more to do with them not setting up the middle phase well. Um, but if you get someone like a Pollard and you tell him to go in just before or just after Sarab Tiwari and just play a natural game, in the last couple of years, Pollard has revolutionized his game against spin, where spinners are scared to bowl to him now. They're not chucking the ball to a spinner, knowing that they'll get him out as they did in the past. So now he can bat at any phase, whether it's in the middle against spin, knowing that if the spinner tosses it too close, that'll go for six. He can even get you that big 50 that you've been after, and he's had a couple, I think, a couple T20 hundreds, So he's a good enough batsman, far less hitter, to go in early and bat a number of balls and add some stability to that middle order.
All right, fair enough. Rohit Sharma and Quinton de Kock make their way out there. Rohit Sharma would have been pleased to see that there was just that one change for the Delhi Capitals, and that was a batting change. There was some chat in our previews too or whether Amit Mishra could be a specialist for just this fixture. And Rohit Sharma would be pleased because if we ask Cricinfo, who's dismissed him the most number of times in the IPL, you'll find that the wily old Amit Mishra still finds his ways to bamboozle good old Rohit Sharma. That's the key that you need to hit for Ask Cricinfo. Whenever you've got a specific T20 query, just ask Cricinfo which bowlers dismissed Rohit Sharma the most in IPL cricket, and you will see then that Mishra features right at the top. Sunil Narayan is there. We know the troubles of Sunil Narayan and Rohit Sharma. And 7 times now the strike rate of under 100. So Sanjay, they've resisted these sort of numbers and matchups. They're confident of this team, the Capitals, and Rohit Sharma would be quite pleased as a result.
Yes, and we've said it on previous shows as well. Amit Mishra is so good as a T20 IPL leg spinner that there's always a case to play him. But Delhi Capitals have been doing well with Akshar, who's been economical. Ashwin as well. The wickets are coming from somewhere else. But today is going to be fun, Ronak, because you see the two spinners bowling, knowing that they don't have a sixth bowler to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. See if Quinton de Kock perhaps takes a liking to one of them. Carlos Brathwaite, Sanjay Manjrekar. Let's pick up the chat on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout in what is a massive game for the Mumbai Indians in the race to the playoffs. We'll see how many they get after losing an important toss at Sharjah.
We call it people technology.